on the cloud. Hello and welcome. My name is Rachel Nemhauser, and I am here from Parent to Parent and the Arc of King County, excuse me. I am the Community and Family Support Program Manager, and really excited to be here tonight to talk about voting and people with disabilities. I noticed when I created this event that I wanted to call it Voting for People with Disabilities, but I realized that's a different topic. I love the idea of voting for people with disabilities, but that's not what we're here today to talk about. Today, we're here to talk about ensuring that people with disabilities have the ability to vote, have access to voting, know their rights when it comes to voting, know how to get the information they need to be informed voters. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I think it's going to be a good one. We selected this topic because obviously elections are coming, and local elections, and then soon national election season will pick up. And as everyone's said every year, this is the most important year. This is when it really matters. We got to get out there. We got to get our person in office. And whether you believe that or not is one question, but the importance of ensuring that everybody gets out there and that everybody's votes are heard is something I think we can all agree on. And so this conversation today is about how to make that happen, like I said. Before I go to our panel, I thought I would start with a quick 4-minute video. This was made by by Rooted in Rights, which is a local, Eric W., maybe you can explain what Rooted in Rights, and it's part of.
Yeah, so Rooted in Rights is a part of Disability Rights Washington, our protection and advocacy system for people with disabilities here. They also do work for the entire protection and advocacy system. I used to work at Disability Rights Washington, so I learned all about it.
You know all about it. You know what.
Yeah, I used to think they were totally separate and like their own thing, but they're part of Disability Rights Washington.
And so this video has Arizona's logo on it for some reason, but that's because Eric was explaining to me that they're all connected organizations. But actually many of the faces in there are local to this area and people you might recognize. So I am going to share my screen. There we go. Click the button to share the sound. Talking to myself, sorry. I'm going to play it up if you can hear and see it.
Are you planning to vote?
I am planning to vote.
Yes, I am planning to vote.
Yes, I am. Definitely planning to vote. I'm excited for my ballot to come in the mail.
I am planning on voting.
Yes, I am to vote.
Technically, I'm not able to vote, but when I do turn 18, I'm planning on, first of all, registering to vote. I plan on getting my ballot in the mail.
Why vote?
It's your opportunity to cast your opinion on how you want to see society run.
To have your voice heard.
Voting is definitely one of the major rights of an adult.
We've worked so hard to get our voting rights.
In America, we fought long and hard for a long time to vote. That's what we were fighting for, to be able to have democracy.
Should people with disabilities vote?
If people with disabilities or other marginalized groups aren't able to vote, then their voices aren't heard and their opinions aren't taken into consideration.
We're still people, we're still human beings.
It is the best option to make sure that we get our rights by voting on things that affect us.
There's a lot of things that our government has done that has either helped people with disabilities because of how people voted, and there's a lot of things that have been done that have hurt people with disabilities.
If you could get your voices heard, then you personally get more independence.
It's kind of our way into adulthood here, like, hey, we get to finally have a say.
Which is very important for people with disabilities, for everyone to be more engaged in their community.
We finally have a voice in what should happen and what things need to change.
What can my vote change?
Voting can affect the people that are representing you in our Senate and House.
Who we decide to elect to be leaders of our government.
I vote for president.
Judges are going to make decisions on cases and how laws should be interpreted.
Laws definitely make a change in people's lives.
New wheelchair ramps,
Healthcare needs.
Assisted suicide.
some closed captioning on new devices.
If you have to start paying for parking.
Things can change and things get better.
So you can really make change both in your own community and then on the national level.
But I don't know how.
When you're a person with a disability and you think maybe sometimes you can't do things, especially vote on your own, you know, you're not always alone, and you can always definitely ask somebody for help.
Ask your family friend to help you.
You shouldn't be told because you have a disability that you can't vote, because that's just not true.
Step 1. Register.
Once you turn 18, register to vote at this link.
ArizonaDisabilityVote.org.
Step 2. Research.
So learn about the issues.
There's a lot of resources online that talk about the different candidates.
There's town halls that you can go to learn about issues.
Watching the news helps me be aware of the larger elections.
There's talking to your community members.
There's videos that you can find that talk in more simpler language about different political issues.
Step 3. Vote.
There are many, many ways to vote. You could go to a polling booth in person.
All voting locations are required to have at least one accessible voting booth. Accessible voting booths may be different depending on your county.
You could send it through the mail.
You can sign up to have your ballot mailed to you once you register to vote.
Nowadays, there are websites out there for voting through the internet.
Online voting is not available everywhere. Check our website to see if it's available in your county.
Voting is really easy.
Just click on that link.
Let's do this.
Vote.
Voting Rights Hotline in Arizona. 1-800-927-2260.
I figure we're not necessarily going to call the voting rights hotline in Arizona, but we'll be sure to share the number for Washington when I have a moment. I really appreciated that video, first of all, because I learned a lot from it, and also because I think it does what is most important, which is centers the voices of people with disabilities and their experiences and their perspective. Why does voting matter to them? Like, I could talk all day long about why it matters to me, but ultimately that's not what we're here to learn about and to talk about. And middle-aged white women don't tend to have problems accessing ballots. So that's not what we're here to explore today. Okay, and I realized I asked Eric to help me without even introducing her. So why don't we take a minute for our panel to introduce yourselves, and then Eric W., I'm going to send it over to you.
Yeah, so my name's Eric Warwick. I'm a community advocacy coordinator here at the ARC of King County. I use she, her pronouns. I'm wearing glasses, a pink shirt. There's a white wall behind me. I'm clearly in an attic, and I'm wearing a messy bun. I'm here to talk about, some of the more mechanics of voting, like eligibility, and some of the, ways that you do have a right to vote, whether you have a disability or not. And then Eric Mathis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Eric Mathis. I'm a community advocacy coordinator that supports disability groups, and I enjoy being a part of the advocacy team at the ARC of King County.
If you get confused that there's two Erics with the same title, we do all the time.
And also we call them the Erics and want them to start a band.
Yeah, we have a video that's going to come out soon.
About featuring the Erics.
Yeah, it's going to be branded.
I love that. I feel like I need to mention it right now that if I was a boy, I was going to be named Eric. My parents and my aunt and uncle had like a thing of who's going to have a boy first and could name it Eric. It was like a family competition. So
It's a great name.
it's
You
a
know, I've
really
kept
good
it.
name. It is. I'm glad we
Yeah.
got it. I'm glad that all came out in this webinar. Richard, how about you?
Should I start the?
Well, I was just asking
Okay,
Richard to
Richard,
introduce
yes.
himself.
I'm not a panelist, but I am here to support and be a part of the conversation. Maybe I work with the Arc of King County on the outreach and advocacy team. I have a particular emphasis in supporting African American and BIPOC families, but Advocacy Days is I guess it's close. That's kind of, the time is flying. It actually is right around the corner. And it's a time that I look forward to because we get to share a lot of information around why voting is important, what voting is, and how to navigate all of these really sometimes confusing systems. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Richard. And yeah, Eric Warwick, this is a great time. I'm gonna spotlight you.
Great. Am I able to share screen? It looks like I am. So this is going to be kind of a sneak preview of a plain language guide that we're going to be publishing sometime soon this month. No guarantees on the exact time. But it covers a whole lot of, issues that other organizations have covered through various grants and things, but also some new issues that have been emerging, such as voter intimidation, for example. So I'm going to get started. All right. So why vote? This is an important question, honestly. As someone who's been a very consistent voter ever since I turned 18, as someone with a disability, whenever I go to vote, I ask myself about this and remind myself why I vote and, why I, go to the trouble of filling out my ballot. So you vote for your government. We live in a representative democracy, and your vote counts towards who is running your government. And your government is who decides how, government money is spent. So that includes things like disability services, it includes things like education and healthcare. Your government also makes laws. And that can be very important for like non-discrimination laws. It can be important for just a whole manner of things that impact your day-to-day life, your rights as a person with a disability, or, everything. But you can also vote for new laws or to repeal laws that the legislature have passed. So an initiative would be if you wanted a new law, and a referendum would be to say whether you want a law that the legislator passed or not. You can also vote for new taxes, such as school levies. If you wanted to say fix up, like build a new school building, a district might say we need a levy for that. Your vote is counted. It's what impacts us. So your vote is very powerful, and using it is very important for really your day-to-day life. So can you vote? Most people can vote, and this does include most people with disabilities. Voting actually starts today. You might not have gotten your ballot in the mail today, but ballots have been sent out into the mail. And in-person voting, there's a few places you can vote in person here in Washington State, although we do mostly mail-in ballots, has started specifically at the King County Elections Office, which I learned today is just a short drive from our new office in Renton next to the IKEA. So that's great. But yeah,
so many important things within IKEA, the ARC, and the elections office, all there.
There's also a good pho place, it looks like.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I actually live over in Spokane County, so that was very important to me when I Googled the
It is.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
But yeah, you can vote from today until November 8th. If you are a US citizen, you've lived in Washington State for at least 30 days before the election, you're 18 years old on or before the election date. So if you turn 18 on November 9th, you can't vote in this election. You can vote in the next one though. But if you turn 18 on November 8th, you can register to vote right now, and you can vote. You could even go down to the polling place right before the polls close and register then there and vote. We make it very easy in this state. But one restriction we have is most people who are currently in prison for felonies can't vote. But if you've been released, typically you can vote under a new law. And King County's election website has a great page on this to answer any questions you might have. But what if you're under a guardianship? So unless a court has specifically said you cannot vote, you still have the right to vote. Guardianship does not mean you are not capable of voting. And in this state, it does not mean that you are not able to register and vote. They are two separate things. I've heard that judges will often try to put them together, but that's not correct. Unless a judge has specifically said you are incapable of voting and we've taken away your right to vote, you can vote.
Can I make a comment about that or ask?
Yeah,
you a
absolutely.
question
Yeah,
about
go
that?
ahead.
In my experience of going through the process of petitioning to become my son's guardian, I felt like I had to specifically ask for that right not to be taken away. I didn't feel it was the opposite, that like, as long as no one mentioned it, he'd have his rights. I thought I had to like intentionally ask about it. Do you know?
Yeah, so there's a big difference between how the legal system operates in practice and how it's supposed to operate.
Well, that's true. That makes sense.
You know, there's a lot of ableism in this system, and this is a form of voter suppression, in my opinion. And Self Advocates Becoming Empowered has a project called Go Voter. They're great. They have lots of resources. I'll share some of them later on, and they talk about this. So can you vote from jail or an institution? This might surprise you. It's yes. Yes, you can. Your right to vote does not go away if you are in jail for whatever reason, or if you're in an institution or a nursing home for whatever reason. Some elections officials will actually bring ballots and accessible voting units to jails and nursing homes and institutions to make sure that people's votes are counted. Just because you were in a jail or an institution does not mean you get your right to vote taken away in this state. And your voice still matters and should be heard. I would suggest that if you or someone you know has been told that they can't, and that they've been told, you know, we are not going to allow you to vote because you're in jail or you're in an institution or you're in a nursing home, I would suggest calling Disability Rights Washington, our protection and advocacy system. They have certain funding from the federal government that helps them provide these services to make sure these places are following the law. Right. What about after you've been incarcerated? So I talked about this a little bit. Yes. So most states, to my knowledge, this isn't true. Some states you even have to like petition the governor themselves to get your right to vote back. But in our states, recently we have a new law that says you can vote so as long as you're not in custody currently. So if you or someone you know has gotten out of prison, they have a right to vote. And they can register to vote. What about if you're homeless? This is also like, I didn't know this until I was researching this, but yeah, if you don't have a permanent address, or as they call it, a traditional address, you can still register to vote. That's been protected since apparently since 2005. I would just make sure that you talk to your county elections office to figure out like the best way to register and all that. But yeah, you can have a valid mailing address, and you would put the location where you live as where you live. So yeah. Can I get help to vote? Yes. So you have a right to accommodations, and those rights don't stop at the ballot box. That wouldn't make sense. It would be discriminatory. if people with disabilities didn't have a right to accommodations for voting, because that would effectively suppress our votes. So you can get assistance in voting, and you can assist someone in voting. If you're assisting someone in voting, you can help someone understand the ballot. You can help someone understand the issues with nonpartisan voting guides, for example, but you can't tell them how to vote or try to coerce them into voting a certain way, or make comments like, well, you shouldn't vote for that person because they're going to take away your funding or something like that. That's not okay. This is about supporting someone's choice. It's a lot like in supported decision making. It's your choice, you're in the driver's seat, but you're getting support, and that's okay. So there's a Rooted in Rights video that goes into this, and if we have time, we can play that one as well. So registering to vote. There are 3 ways to register to vote. You can do it online, by mail, or in person. But there's deadlines for online and by mail. So you can, for this election, you can register online at the Secretary of State's office website until October 30th. You can do it by mail, sending in a physical form by October 30th. But if you've missed those deadlines, you can still vote. You would just have to go down and register in person. And you could even vote in person there if you wanted to at one of the polling places, which I will link the polling places later. Also, if you've moved, make sure to update your address so that you are getting the correct ballot and you get your ballot to you. So who do I vote for and what do I vote for? I thought this was a funny way to phrase it. So who and what you vote for is your choice. Not anyone else's, it's yours. But many people use endorsements to decide who to vote for. Maybe there's someone or an organization that you trust that has looked into it and into a candidate, maybe interviewed them and said, we think that this person is the correct person to hold this office, and maybe you agree with them and their reasoning. Not everyone researches every single little thing on their own, but some people do. I do this. Maybe not for everything, but for a lot of things. So there's many ways to do research on your own. You can read campaign websites. That's the first thing I do. There's another resource I really, really like. It's called Ballotpedia. It's kind of like Wikipedia, but it's not user generated like Wikipedia is. It's edited, and they send out surveys to candidates to get their opinions on issues, and it's nonpartisan. Doesn't tell you what to do and who to vote for. It just gives you information about those candidates in a nice, easy to understand way. It's sort of like a voter's guide a little bit, but different. So something I really like doing, and you'd be surprised at how often you can get answers here. I like to reach out to candidates directly and ask them questions. So there's someone running for Congress, and in my district where I live in Spokane, and I asked her if she would support a bill that I know my current congresswoman supports, because I wanted to make an informed decision. And yeah, got an answer about that, and that has informed me. So you can ask about certain bills, you can ask about their opinions on things. I've cornered many politicians seeking office to ask about issues I've cared about, both in person and online. And they're always eager to tell you because they know that you're the voter and you matter to them and whoever they get elected. So like I said, you can also look at voter guides and endorsements, and that just gives you more data. There's also voter surveys, so like candidate surveys that nonprofits that can't endorse will send out just to give people more information on it. I don't recall if the Arc of Washington right now is doing that, but they have in the past sent out surveys so candidates can say, their opinions on things, what they plan to do if elected, et cetera, et cetera. That's been very helpful for me in making decisions. You can look at the video voters guide. So you might get a voters pamphlet in the mail, but many candidates also work with Television Washington, TVW, our version of C-SPAN, essentially, to put out a video voters guide. This year, it's only been 5 candidates, which is disappointing to me, but 2 Senate candidates, a judge, and the 2 candidates for Secretary of State have all done videos for that. And I see there's a chat. So I'm gonna see what that is. Oh, okay, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, another thing, I don't do this very often, but it's really fun to do, is you can see who's contributed to each candidate. And following the money in that way, seeing who candidates get money from can be very impactful and give you a lot of information on maybe what that candidate might support. So the 2 ways to do this are going for the Public Disclosure Commission. So that's all of Washington state. They don't cover anything federal. And then federally is the Federal Elections Commission. So that's going to be like your Senate races, your congressional races, etc. If folks want, I can walk you through looking up candidates in the Washington State Public Disclosure Commission. It's really easy. You just type in for the search bar and usually it comes up. But yeah, it's really fun. And there's all sorts of really good information on the PDC website. So now you've made your decision. You know who you want to vote for. Where do I vote? Most people in Washington State, you'll vote by mail. I've only voted by mail. But if you want to vote in person, say you need some assistance while voting, or you just want to have the process explained to you by an elections official, you can go in person. That is your right. And it is your right at that polling place to get accommodations. And it is your right to use an accessible voter unit. I've seen these up close. They're electronic and they can read the ballot to you. And there's all sorts of other ways that they make it more possible technologically for people to vote. Right now, as I've said before, you can vote in person from now until the end of the election at the King County Elections Office. And then this is a link for all voting locations. I'll put these links in the chat later tonight. And like I mentioned, there's a short drive from the Arc of King County office, which I find very nice. I tried to find walking directions and it was 24 minutes. So I wouldn't say it's walkable from there, but there is transit access to there, which is nice. Yeah, and King County Elections Office Department, they have a whole page on accessible voting options. Also, if you want to call them and ask about it and maybe get some technical assistance around like how you're planning to do your votes or helping your loved one vote, they're very happy to do that. They are some of the nicest like government officials I've ever worked with. And they're so enthusiastic about voting. It's great.
You just don't hear people describe government officials as the nicest ever that often. So it's so like hopeful and lovely to hear that.
Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Like, I work in advocacy, so if I'm saying these people are amazing, they're amazing.
That's wonderful.
So maybe you voted at home, but you don't feel comfortable, you're not physically able to get to a ballot box or a post box by yourself. Can you ask someone to deliver your ballot for you? The answer is yes. And some people are mistaken and they think that it's illegal and they think that, people are stealing elections this way or something like that. And they're trying to stop people from being able to do this. In Washington state, this is perfectly legal and you have a right to this. If someone is trying to stop you from delivering a ballot to help someone vote, to help someone access the right to vote, that's a form of voter intimidation. It's very serious. It is a crime. And just remember, you have the right to vote, and no one can take that away. And please, if it's safe to, ignore them and then vote. But if you do feel unsafe, definitely call someone about that. But yeah, so your right to vote does not go away when you have a disability or for any other reason. This is a fact sheet on voter intimidation that I got from someone who works in supporting they track and fight anti-democratic movements. They're a colleague of mine here in Spokane. So if this does happen to you, first of all, I'm very sorry. There's been more and more cases of this in Washington state over the past few years. It's very serious. But there's some people you can call to report it. First and foremost, call the county elections office to make sure that they know this is happening and that they can stop it. But you can also contact the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. You can use the nationwide nonpartisan voter protection hotline from the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and they have different language options that you can use. The ACLU, again, they advise to call your local, to report these incidents to local elections office, so that'd be King County Elections for here in King County. And then my colleague works at the Western State Center, and I would definitely suggest if this happens to you and it's from some sort of group that tries to suppress votes or they are anti-democracy, the Western State Center, they're an amazing organization that would love to know that this is happening and help fight that. So also the ARC National, they have a voter support service. And this is for more than just voter intimidation and suppression. It's other barriers to voting as well, such as inaccessibility at polls, stuff like that. You can also, I think on their form, they also have guardianship issues on there, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, so after you've hopefully not dealt with any voter intimidation, you can track your ballots after you've voted. So sometimes if your signature just doesn't match what they have on file very well, your ballot might be temporarily like discarded, not discarded, but like it needs to be fixed essentially. They call this ballot curing. The elections officials might contact you for it. More than likely, the reason why you might need to cure your ballot is if there was like a really tight election, less than 1% difference between one candidate and another, or maybe even an initiative, and the campaign for those candidates wants to make sure everyone's vote is counted in the hopes that they were actually the winners. Several elections have been decided with ballot curing here in Washington state, and it's just correcting your signature. So that is what that is. It's sometimes weird, and I just wanted to flag that just in case this does come up, and you can learn more about this at the King County Elections Office website. But yeah, tracking your ballot, making sure there's no problems with it, and making sure it gets counted, you can do that through the King County Elections as well. I think it's really cool. to see that your ballot did get counted. So here's some additional resources. Self-advocates becoming empowered. They're a national group of self-advocates with self-advocates with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They have the Go Voter Project. Many wonderful resources there. And then the National Disability Rights Network also has the Voters of Disabilities Activated project. There's also other ones like Rev Up from the AAPD, and the ARC National, I think, has a voter program, but when I was making this presentation, I could not find it. So yes, that is the end of this. Are there any questions?
That was really, really fascinating and well done, Eric. Thank you. What I really liked about it is that it was very clearly presented, but also not like patronizing or oversimplifying. Like it kind of acknowledged that this is a really complicated issue, but that we need to kind of break it down so that everyone can access it. So I just thought that was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would also, I second that, but I also would say that I really appreciate how organized this is. A lot of times information like this can get really, really heavy, or you kind of get into a rabbit hole and you're like, where am I? Like, what am I doing? And this is really clear and concise. And so I really appreciate that. Can I have these slides though? I mean,
Yeah.
I love that, you know?
Yeah, I'm happy to share these slides.
Cool.
Anyone, we can actually, let's put them up on the website next to I assume it's going to be a Vimeo link.
Yep, we
Okay.
can do that. Absolutely.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
for our audience member, Julie, if you'd like us to email you a copy of the slides, you can just share your email address with me in the chat. You can send it to me privately if you'd like, and then I'll send it. I'd be happy to send it to you. That was really amazing. I'm so excited to see that as a resource. Did we explain that adequately, that this is a precursor? This is a sneak preview, sneak peek of a end product you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
And is the end product a video, or is it a guide? How would you describe it?
Yeah, so we're gonna do what's called an easy to read guide. So that has pictures and icons next to plain language text. It's not going to be, this is getting a little bit deep into the weeds, so I'm gonna but there's a difference between easy read and easy to read. This is easy to read, it's just a little different. It's not going to be focus grouped is the main difference here. But yeah, so very shortly it'll get released. And I'm thinking we're going to do some videos, but that is to be determined. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to shift gears. Can you stop sharing your screen when you have a moment? Thank you. We're going to now shift gears to talk to the other Eric as part of the Erics. Eric Mathis is here as a advocate in the disability community. Eric, you've worked at the ARC for what, 10 years, 12 years? What?
I think 12 years, because I started in 2010.
That's incredible. Okay, you've been at the ARC for 12 years. And in those 12 years, what have you mainly dedicated yourself to doing?
As my passion that I've had before I stepped my foot into the door of the ARC of King County, I was very much into legislative advocacy and advocacy in general.
Mhm.
And now it's basically that turned into my dream job, where I'm actually doing it with the full experience that I've been through and the things that I have heard from disability groups and individuals that are advocates themselves. And I have learned by listening to them and the experiences that I've had and the importance around the different types of advocacy.
I love that. Thank you for explaining that. I'm bringing up our questions that we agreed on. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight me and you.
Okay.
No offense to everyone else, but it just makes it a little easier for people to to see. Richard, you said you're not a panelist, so I won't add you to the spotlight, but you feel free to jump in with any thoughts that you want to share. And same thing with Eric and Julie too. Eric, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. In addition to being an advocate, you're also a person with a disability. So I think you're here speaking as an advocate and speaking as a person with a disability. Would you agree? Do you think that's a fair way to describe it?
I think that's great. Thank you,
Okay.
Rachel.
All right. Thank you. You said before that you're not a fan of the term self-advocate because you're an
I'm a
advocate.
fan, but a self-advocate, basically you're advocating for yourself. If you're an advocate, you're advocating for others and being supportive. And then as an ally can be a person without a disability. Also, an ally can be a person with a disability, and
That's right.
encouraging people to vote, for example, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Why do you think it's important for people with disabilities to be involved in advocacy?
Well, I think it's very important to be involved in advocacy. And if you don't know how to get involved with advocacy, you can always contact me through the King County, and I can show you different disability groups that you can be involved with and share your voice, because that's what happens when you are an advocate or a self-advocate. And that's where all of that comes from. And around voting, it's a great way to be involved with disability groups, because there are many people that could be able to support you.
That's great. Thank you. Would you say that, well, let me ask you this. Why is it important for people with disabilities to vote specifically?
So their voices, I think it's very important and have their voices to know who their legislators are, as Eric Warwick mentioned, and finding your district, and then you have like 3 legislators. You got 2 representatives and 1 senator, and it will tell you like what district you're in. For example, I live in the 34th legislative district. I have 3 legislators, and basically, if you don't know how to do that, that's very easy to do, and that could be able to support any of you.
Thank you. That's so great to know that you're out there to be available to people who might need it. But do you think that it sounds like you're describing how a person can get the information they need, but why does it matter in the first place? Why is it important for people with disabilities to vote?
Well, if you don't want to see things happen or get passed in our legislature and all of that, advocacy is basically important to know what's going on. Like, for example, a lot of us, transportation is one of the barriers, and that's one of the things that you could get involved in through advocacy, and how to get involved in what groups that you could get involved with transportation, and be an advocate for Metro here in Seattle, for example.
So you're saying that it's important to vote if you're a person with a disability because these issues impact you and actually can interfere with your life if the vote goes the wrong way. Like so if you want to make a change, you have to.
Yes, if you want to make a change, go out and vote, and there are people that will be very supportive and engaging with you and supporting you on how to do that.
What do you think gets in the way of people with disabilities being able to vote?
Sometimes they just don't. Some people may not know how to do all of that, and that kind of disencourages.
They don't even know how. They don't even know where to start.
how to do it. Yes.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean,
Yeah.
when you and I talked about this in preparing for this conversation, or in preparing for this session, it was really notable to me. You said, some people when they turn 18 don't even know that they can vote. And I take that like hit me hard as a parent, because to me that means maybe us as parents aren't doing a good enough job of making sure our kids know that when they turn 18 they can vote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got to do better at that,
Yes.
because it's disturbing to know that people with disabilities might not even know they have that right.
And they do have that right.
Yeah.
And it's up to you if you really want to see something happens, like if you like libraries, talk to your legislators, see what's
Mhm.
going on, go to town halls, be an advocate, and see what you can do to make that change so you could be able to go to a library in your own community.
That's right. I love that. That's how you make a change. It's one of the ways.
Yes,
One of the
it's
ways.
one way out of many ways.
That's right. Okay, so I have a general question, and then maybe you can answer it with a specific story from your life. What are things that parents can do to instill the value of voting and to support their kids during election season?
Well, there's one thing that I enjoy doing with my parents, for example, and anyone can do this, is it's called caucusing with family members, like with your parents and your son or daughter, and talking about like who's running and what for, that sort of thing. And if you have a question, just ask your parents of what they think, and then it's up to you whoever you want to vote for.
So you're saying that every election season you get together with your parents, you call it caucusing, and
Yes,
you spend time talking through all the issues
back
of
and
all the
forth
candidates.
and all of the different things that's from the Seattle Times to different, like what the pamphlet says, and having a better idea on who we're voting for and what they're doing, and if that's important in your life, you decide who you want to vote for.
And in the end, nobody's telling you who to vote for.
No one is
Ultimately, you're
telling you
deciding who to vote for based on
Right.
the information you got
Right.
from your caucusing.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you. I think that's really such a great demonstration of how this could work, how this could look and how this could work, because it takes time. Nobody's saying this isn't that it doesn't take time for people to understand issues and really explore their favorite candidates and what people stand for. But with a little bit of time, everybody can kind of understand and make these big, important decisions.
Absolutely. They're very big, important decisions. And it's everything that you could think of wanting to go to a park or a library or anything that you like to do. There's a lot of advocacy around those things to keep those parks and libraries functioning and working the way that you want.
That's right. The world doesn't just function by accident. It takes a lot of work. That's
Yes.
right. That's right. There's work to be done. So we just said what parents can be doing. What do you think allies can be doing to ensure that people with disabilities can access voting?
Allies can be able to be very supportive, sharing great and good resources around voting, and have like having it in plain language, easy enough to read, easy enough to do, technology wise, if you're going to vote online, or if you want to do it like in person, there are ways that you could get connected, and that could be able to help support that for disability groups or individuals that want to vote and haven't tried it.
So you're saying
yes,
make it accessible,
yes,
make it easy to understand, actually drive people to voting locations if they need it, and offer support. Those are three things I think I just heard you say.
yes. But for some people, like for people with disabilities, not everyone as a person with a disability can drive, but some can, which is great.
Mhm.
But taking the bus is one thing, but you could do anything that you can, and also by Zoom and explaining and showing things by sharing your screen of how easy that you can do that. Or if
That's
you
right.
or if you want an ally or an advocate to support you, and you get the consent to vote, have the person vote, and just going down by one, and then you could be able to do it that way.
I mean, there are so many ways to help, is what it sounds
Absolutely.
like. I really appreciate that, because we can't all do everything, but we can all do a little bit.
Right.
You mentioned earlier, we talked, and we have said it a second time, that voting is only one of the ways that you can get involved and make a difference in the world,
Yes.
in advocacy. What's another way? What are some other ways people with disabilities can get involved?
Surfing the internet, typing things that you want to look into and get involved in that way, like town halls is a way to see candidates and what they're speaking on and that sort of thing. And that's one way to get involved in advocacy that way.
That's awesome. Those are great suggestions. I would also add, call you.
And yeah,
Call the Erics.
Call me at my work number. That is in our King County's website.
That's right.
And that will get shared with all of you.
And you and Eric Warwick can help a person find out how to get involved and how to jump in. Like, where's a place for them? If a person wants to vote but doesn't know where to start, could they also call you and Eric?
Yeah, they can definitely call Eric Warwick or myself, and we'll be very supportive and do what we can by having them participants to email myself or Eric Warwick, and we'll do our best to support and give you the right resources.
Yeah, we're also happy to help you research. We're happy to look up where your nearest polling place is. We're happy to get you in contact with someone in King County elections, just anything,
We're here. We are here.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. Any final thoughts that you want to share, Eric Mathis?
Well, just remember, only you can vote. If you want to vote, it is important, as Eric Warwick and myself explained to you. And so if you're 18 and ready to vote, go for it. And if you want support, we are here to support you.
I love that. That's such a great, make sure you use that clip, Eric, in your Richard, I saw you turned your camera on. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Not particularly. I just want to say that I just appreciate the fact that this is just sharing this information is encouraging families to have these conversations. I think that a lot of times, if you're not exposed to the liberty to ask questions and there's really no, how should I say it? People always say there's no dumb question. I just don't like the word dumb, but I would say
there's no bad questions.
There's no bad questions. There we go. There's no bad questions, because questions are how we learn. And so I think that the more that we're, what do we call it, caucusing, like in the home, I think the more that that's happening, the more we'll be able to get an understanding of what the community really needs and wants. Right. And so it's just really big for everyone. I feel like it's like personal value. I just really feel like everyone should have a voice or the opportunity to say something or share something. So just grateful that you guys put this training on tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard, for being here, for
thank
support
you,
and for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And does anyone have any final thoughts or comments or questions that they'd like to ask or share? Okay, wait. I'm gonna put a link in for a survey, but I don't have it in front of me. Hang on 1 minute. Don't put this in the video, Eric. Oh my God. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting to the link. There we go.
While we wait for the survey, I do have one final thing. Remember to vote. The voting deadline is November 8th at 8 p.m. And if you wanted to go in person and vote in person and register the same day, we're one of the few states you can do that, and it's amazing. I love it.
What do you need to bring with you if you want to register to vote same day? Do you need a picture ID?
I don't recall. Go to the King County Elections website.
Okay.
They will have the information there, or you can call them. But yes, I think a picture ID is
Picture ID is probably well valid, I think,
Mhm.
like your Washington ID card that you have.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like that when they tell you when your kid's 16 to get them a valid picture ID, that's maybe one of the reasons why.
Yes.
All right. I shared the survey in the link. If anyone would like to take a minute to complete it, it tells us how we're doing and how we can get better. Thank you so much, Eric, and Richard, for being here tonight and for sharing your expertise and your passion for what you do. This was amazing. It's made me even more excited to have my son vote for his first time ever this year, and just really excited to watch him be a citizen like that. So thanks, you guys, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.